Forget Nero's fiddling and Commodus's gladiatorial theatrics. The deepest, darkest secret of the Roman Empire is the mind of the emperor who dared to declare himself a god. His name was Gaius, but history remembers him by his childhood nickname, Caligula. He was the golden boy of Rome, the beloved son of a military legend. He started his reign as a beacon of hope and sanity. But within 3 years, he became a monster, killing his friends, sleeping with his sisters, and waging a bizarre, humiliating war on the sea itself. This is the story of Rome's most dramatic transformation. It's not just a list of scandals, it's a terrifying psychological case study. What trauma, what sickness, what primal fear turned the most beloved man in Rome into the most hated tyrant? If you value the history that explores the terrifying link between trauma and absolute power, stick with us. You're about to witness Caligula's descent into pure, unadulterated tyranny. Gaius Julius Caesar. Germanicus was born with a destiny unmatched. His father was Germanicus, Rome's golden-haired military hero, and his mother was Agrippina the Elder, a formidable descendant of Augustus. As a toddler, Gaius traveled with his father's legions on campaign in Germania. The soldiers, doting on the little boy, gave him a miniature uniform, complete with tiny sandals. They called him, affectionately, Caligula, Latin for little boot. This nickname, meant to symbolize loyalty, would later become the name of Rome's greatest nightmare. But the light of his childhood was brutally extinguished. Germanicus died suddenly in Antioch, likely poisoned on the orders of the paranoid emperor Tiberius. This loss was not just personal, it was a political earthquake. Caligula's childhood became a terror. His mother and brothers were arrested and executed by Tiberius. He, the last surviving male relative, was whisked away to Capri, Tiberius's island fortress, a place notorious for its debauchery and fear. Young Gaius spent years watching his family members vanish, forced to endure the brutal and unpredictable moods of the tyrant Tiberius. To survive, Gaius learned the ultimate art of deception, how to smile while his soul was dying. The historian Tacitus claimed, "There was never a better slave, nor a worse master. This period taught him that absolute power equals survival, and that trust is a fatal weakness." When Tiberius died in 37 AD, Rome rejoiced. The people saw the return of Caligula, the last son of Germanicus, as a new dawn. His first 7 months were magnificent. He abolished oppressive taxes, released prisoners, and showered the populace with games. Rome believed its wounds were healed. But the seeds of paranoia, sown on Capri, were about to bloom into madness. Then, in late 37 AD, tragedy, or rather, a fever, struck. Caligula fell violently ill, reportedly near death. Senators vowed to sacrifice their own lives if the young emperor recovered. All of Rome held its breath. When he finally emerged from his sickbed, the man who returned was unrecognizable. The psychological scars of his childhood, compounded by a severe physical illness, historians suggest anything from acute encephalitis to temporal lobe epilepsy, had cracked his mind. The golden boy was gone. The paranoid tyrant took his place. His first act upon recovery was an act of cold, calculated sadism. He executed Tiberius Gemellus, his cousin and co-heir. Then he ordered the forced suicide of his father-in-law, Marcus Silanus. He was cleaning house, eliminating any potential threat with terrifying speed and cruelty. The mask of the good emperor was torn away. But the most shocking turn involved his 3 surviving sisters, Drusilla, Livilla, and Agrippina the Younger. Before his illness, they were his confidants. After, they became his official consorts and objects of a bizarre religious cult. He declared his favorite sister, Drusilla, an incarnation of the goddess Venus. He would publicly treat them as his wives, demonstrating total contempt for Roman social taboos and legal decency. Why? Because the Roman emperor was now claiming he was above human law. This was the first, terrifying step in his demand for divinity. He was no longer just a ruler. He was a capricious, vengeful god walking the earth. The paranoia escalated into a terrifying power play. He would famously taunt the senators by declaring, "I wish the Roman people had but one neck," a chilling wish to execute the entire populace with one swing of the blade. The message was clear. His survival was the only thing that mattered, and everyone else was merely an obstacle. Caligula's reign rapidly devolved into a spectacular, terrifying theater of the absurd. The problem wasn't just his cruelty. It was his monumental narcissism and belief in his own divinity. He emptied the state treasury built by Tiberius, spending money with maniacal speed on monuments to himself. He ordered the construction of a massive, pointless floating bridge across the Bay of Baiae. He spent exorbitant sums building colossal temples and statues dedicated to himself, demanding that he be worshipped alongside the traditional gods. His infamous treatment of his horse, Incitatus, was not primarily an act of love for an animal. It was a devastating insult to the Senate. He built the horse a marble stable, gave it human servants, and allegedly planned to appoint Incitatus as a consul. This wasn't lunacy. It was a masterful political attack, screaming to the Roman elite, "My horse is just as worthy as you, if I say so." He had broken the Roman institution of government and replaced it with his own ego. His military exploits were equally bizarre. Obsessed with emulating Alexander the Great, Caligula planned a grand invasion of Britain. He gathered a massive army on the coast of Gaul. The invasion never happened. Instead, in the most absurd act of his reign, he ordered his legions to line up facing the sea and commanded them to gather seashells. Declaring these shells the spoils of his victory over the sea god Neptune, he ordered a triumph and returned to Rome. This spectacle was the final, humiliating step in his claim to absolute power. He was now so powerful he could defeat the gods of nature, or at least force his generals to play along. He was no longer satisfied ruling men. He sought to mock the cosmos, draining the public purse and public patience to fund his psychotic fantasies. And every act of absurdity was a dangerous test. If the Senate allowed him to wage war on Neptune, what wouldn't they allow? The answer was becoming terrifyingly clear. By 41 AD, Rome was a prisoner of its emperor's unpredictable rage. Caligula's paranoia reached its peak. He would often randomly decide on public tortures, or demand that specific senators be executed during a feast. The question in Rome was no longer if he would be killed, but when and by whom. The conspiracy was led by the very people sworn to protect him, the Praetorian Guard. Cassius Chaerea, a tribune in the Guard, was the chief conspirator. Chaerea was driven not by political ambition, but by deep personal resentment. Caligula frequently mocked his voice, his mannerisms, and his perceived lack of manhood. Chaerea sought revenge for the unending public humiliation. The moment came on January 24th, 41 AD. Caligula was in his palace, on his way to an afternoon performance, moving through a secluded, underground corridor after bathing. Chaerea and his co-conspirators cornered the emperor in the narrow passage. Chaerea struck first, burying his sword in Caligula's neck, screaming, "Take that!" Others quickly joined in the frenzy. The death was brutal and final. The conspirators stabbed him over 30 times. The chaos following his death was immediate. The Germanic palace guard, intensely loyal to the man who had been their childhood mascot, rushed in, massacring dozens of innocent people in their blind fury. But the final act of tyranny was complete. Caligula, his wife Caesonia, and his young daughter were all murdered to ensure no trace of his tyrannical line remained. The Senate, in a moment of desperate hope, considered restoring the Republic, but the Praetorian Guard quickly declared Caligula's timid uncle, Claudius, as the new emperor. Caligula's reign was short, just under 4 years, but its impact was seismic. Rome attempted damnatio memoriae, condemnation of memory, trying to erase his statues and monuments. But the story remains a chilling proof that unchecked power, coupled with deep psychological trauma, can turn even a beloved prince into a murderous, narcissistic god. If you understand that history is driven by fear and madness, Please leave a thumbs up now to help us bring more of these dark truths to light. And be sure to subscribe for our next deep dive into the shocking stories the history books try to forget. Thank you for watching.